One thing I've learned, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. If you come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego, or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire. We are back, and we're live. Feet to the fire. I'm your host, James Arthur Yanchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio in year 18 live. Broadcasting live on Spreaker. Soon it will be uploaded to YouTube and then onto BitChute. But you can listen to live and stop in the chat room if you'd like to talk. It is through the Spreaker system. I don't think you have to have an account to listen. You may have to log in to go to the chat room. I'm not sure. I guess I should find that out one day. But it is Election Day 2020 in the United States of America. And I have some ponderings I wanted to do. I've been listening. I've had some ideas for a while, and I'm happy to hear other people come up with them. So I don't want to think that I'm crazy or, unique in left field. Because of what is happening. We have anybody who's been following this, other than just perusing along the mainstream, but listening to all various venues and areas, reading in various commentaries, news stories, a lot of the stuff coming out from just regular old people with their your phones, recording and putting up at YouTube and writing on blogs what they've seen on the ground, is very helpful, since the mainstream has an agenda they're following, and even something like Fox, which the mainstream media claims to be some kind of right-wing organ for the president. It isn't. It isn't, believe me, if you watch it. A couple I like Tucker Carlson, that's about it, of that station. I mean, others are okay. I mean, heck, Hannity's a Republican hack, just so happens to be on the right side of history at this point, but I'm not a big fan of his. He's really he's a big fan of himself. But Laura Ingraham is okay. But Tucker's really good. And I've been following various people. I mean, even on the social media, since I can trim out a lot of the baggage and knuckleheads and find people who really do have some pretty good information and comments, I've been able to glean a lot of information through that area. It's made fun of by the mainstream and those who are in the liberal wings. And we know why they do that. They make fun of things to try and discredit it. And we saw this with the internet in general, when it came up in internet journalism. At first, the mainstream, or the present thing at the time, this is a very common way it happens. They ignore it, then they make fun of it, and then they pollute it as the last step. If they can't get rid of it, then pollute it, and this is where we're in now. We're in a pollution stage, and it takes a special filter to get rid of the junk without losing the good data. And that's where critical thought really comes in. And this is really an exercise in developing one's ability to examine both oneself and one's opinion, as well as all the other stuff coming in. I have done such a feat, so I say anyway. And I wanted to share things up front before it starts happening of what I think. I mean, I've read a book, it's called The Road to Ruin. It's financial based and aftermath, both by James. Gosh, I keep forgetting his name because it's not. Oh, let me just look it up. You can never. Road to Ruin. Name, author's name, Richard. James Rickards. I keep thinking Richard, having this dyslexia thing in my head, a little bit touch of it. And so when I think of Rickards, I think of Richards, but I know it's not right. And then I'm thinking, what is it? So James Rickards, he brings a very good point in there, which is kind of not the point of the book, really, but he brings up the idea of a system, complexity systems theory. That when you have complex systems, unexpected things could happen because it's a nonlinear function. You have various systems working together with myriads and myriads of possibilities. And so for someone to be able to figure them all out, you can't. That's why, computers make good chess machines, not that they can learn, if I use the term in a human sense, to play good, is that they could play every possible combination, and they could take those and play them out thousands and thousands of combinations outward and try to guess the best way to go or where you're going and what to do with it. And when it comes to complexity theory, systems theory, it is like that. There's so many things happening, and they're on multiple. If I could graph this in a picture, the old Star Trek three-dimensional chess game? Well, think about that as thousands and thousands of boards. You can't see some of them, but they're still playing, and they'll affect the board next to them and so forth. Basically, one thing he says in the book, a phrase I like, is the butterfly effect. Butterfly in one end of the world, hurricane in the other. In complexity systems theory, it's an exaggeration, but it's an analog example. It's almost a caricature, but it's true. You can have, for example, he talks about in a book, you can have a emerging market, small market on one side of the globe, unremarkable. Things happen, and they touch off something else. Next thing you know, you got Goldman Sachs failing. So keeping that in mind, I took that idea, that complexity theory, and looked at the election, because one of the things I think we're good at right now is we're in a vortex, meaning that you can't see past the election today. You could just throw stuff out there, and maybe somebody will be right, but you can't actually critically thinking, logically, evidentially walk through the other side and predict the future. What you can do, like in chess, is you can play out several choices made by the pieces on the boards and what is the ramifications of those choices. And like I mentioned, there's many, many, many things that can happen. But in this case, we can narrow it down to, a handful of significant aspects. Now, of course, I say that with tongue in cheek because, as I mentioned in the text, which is not in front of me now, for this show, the quote of God that I use, a quote from a wisdom, I should say, from the Psalms is comes into play when you're dealing with the plans of men. And one of the phrase I was thinking of here, I'm trying to find the exact. I can stumble through it, or I can look up the quote I put down. Um, the Lord nullifies the plans of nations. He frustrates the plans of peoples. And I kind of like that aspect of it. And what we figure out is happening here, there's this unseen hand working on that chessboard that's far off to the side, way out of sight. We can't see it, but it has direct bearing on a domino effect that comes through onto our chessboard that could be absolutely profound. I mean, to me, that's how God works. God doesn't just like step in and just go, blah, right? He works subtly from eons ahead of time so that things work out for the highest, best good of all involved. Now, that means a lot of times there's negative stuff that happens, but even that negative stuff is highest, best good. So, I can't rule out what weight might be weighing on the situation here today. And if I could be further more of a fool and try to guess God's thinking, his thought process, is that people, things tend to be their own demise or success. So if somebody's planning evil, oftentimes that evil will be the source of their own demise. I think this is one of those times that we're all stacked up on this vortex, and I can't see. People could say, oh, yeah, well, Biden's going to win, and Trump's going to win, and this is going to happen, and, especially when you get to Q, sit back with the popcorn stuff. You could just say this, right? But if you want to try and logically work it out so that you can see and feel your way through it, not just say it and not just hope it or not feel it in emotional sense. Yeah, there's really, no one can tell what's going to happen. As we get closer, though, now let's go back a week or two, right? As you get closer to the event horizon, decisions are being made across that whole matrix, and it starts to get a little bit blurry, but in focus. You're starting to get like a little bit of a taste of what it is, because as you get closer to the vortex, people have made decisions, things have made decisions, and so now it's getting closer and closer to that point. And so if somebody were to ask me, 6 months ago, what happened? I don't know, And even a few weeks ago, I could throw some stuff out there. But let me run through some of the things that I've come up with as I look at this. And I guess I'm doing it now up front in a way to kind of like validate what I'm saying for future reference. So that many people go, oh, yeah, I said this a long time ago. And of course, if you're wrong, wrong. But this is how I see things. What I have been saying in the last few years, probably since Trump's election, maybe a little before, is that I think we're in a time of the revealing, the revelation, if you will, apocalypse, which is the Greek word for the revealing, hence Revelation, the book of Revelation, and why some Bibles call it the apocalypse of St. John or what have you. I think we're in a time of a revealing. So that things that have been, Jesus once said, the things that are said in your inner room will be shouted on the rooftops, etc. We're uncovering the tarp and seeing the swamp underneath it. And many good things will come out. People will stand up and do good things and make decisions on themselves that they will solidify for their righteousness, let's say, in the game, how it's played. And a lot of these are stacked on top of another, so that you have the election, okay, but that's not it. Everybody in their lives are going through changes and pressures and whatnots. I liken it to going through a crucible, and when you refine gold, again, these are biblical analogs. You refine gold, it burns off the impurities, and the gold is more pure, thus more precious and more a characteristic of what gold is, as opposed to what alloy. So we're all in that stage right now. This is worldwide. This is not a Christian thing. It's just reality. And if you are a Christian, or in some way, overtly or unwillingly or whatever, you're connected with God, you can kind of see, you can kind of, I don't know what the word would be, feel the flow of it. So as we're coming forward, if you think about the election is the is the physical worldwide material political power section that this is in. So each people are making their own decisions, and God is revealing reality, the soul, the things that have been hidden. A lot of it bad, but a lot of it good too. The good probably is not as noteworthy, but personally and individuals in certain times, certain situations would be. So as we get closer to this vortex, this event horizon, singularity. I mean, I hate to use some words because a lot of times people already use those words for something else, and then it's mistaken for what I mean. As we get closer to that, people are. I like the idea about the event horizon because as you get closer to the black hole, theoretically, as you speed up, the gravity, like if you're heading foot long into near the horizon, event horizon, the gravity in your feet could be many times more powerful than on your head, and it rips you apart. This is why I kind of laugh at the idea of people going through wormholes into other spaces. But as we're going through this, it's getting hotter, and the impurities are being burned off, and we're making decisions. Are we going to go up to righteousness in our growth, or are we going to be burned up in the slag? What are we made of? Are we gold? Is there enough gold in there? And we can, the analogy breaks down when, because we can add the gold to it. We can call upon God to help us in righteousness, and he could fill us up and build us in this time. So it's not, and all analogs fall apart, but we're being put in this position, but everyone is. And some people have already thrown it to a point, so they're not as affected by it because they've already had their own version of it, and they are participating in it, but not necessarily as dramatic as others. And what is really on the table for the world is, it's not communism or capitalism. Those are all vehicles, argumentative vehicles. It comes down to be slavery, oppression, or freedom, or throwing off the oppression that we're already going down to start to go back toward freedom. The idea of God is God wants you to choose your destiny. God also knows what you're best suited for, being the creator. And so God is willing to help you find be your best. The rebellion side, the satanic side, Luciferian side of the rebellion, hey, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, do as thou wilt, is actually harms yourself because you're going to want to do by some deluded reason. Either somebody's going to talk you into it, or you're going to be brought up into their own power system to be used, thinking that you are having freedom and all this. But so the choices are going to be: am I going to be the best that I can be and go to the author of all things to find out what that is and help me through this course? Or am I going to take charge of that stuff and burn up in flames? This is basically what's going on all at the same time. Now we're looking at it in political, the world is poised on a one world government and all this stuff. And it's, the science is catching up to be able to change DNA and to monitor people technically. And, all this stuff is all racing up to this point. And this is why I kind of like the idea of the old 2012 model only being now. It was, 2012 model was early. I mean, the date is not arbitrarily, but it was figured out, and there were many options for it. So that I think we're more fitted to be at that place now as we all rush forward. And as the flames in the crucible grow, I mean, you're seeing wars and riots coming and people doing just vile things that would never be done accepted years ago. The media most of the media has already taken over and gone with the dark side, Luke, has gone with that world oppression side. All the companies that are signing on to BLM, the BLM is it's just like a front, a word to say, like, if you support BLM, you're not really supporting Black Lives That Matter. You're supporting this movement, this revolution into a tyranny. And that's the badge you wear, which is it's safe to wear. Wait, I just want to help Black lives. You know, no, what are you talking about? Well, you can publicly come out and sign on to the system, wear this badge, which is supposed to be harmless, but what it signifies really underneath is harmful. So you see corporation after corporation coming out and signing on to this. Perhaps some of them are duped into it. Others know full well what's going on. And they're siding with this revolution. And you're literally looking at Trump and a handful of Republicans, because there's a lot of Republicans who are no problem with the system as long as they're included. The old left-to-right paradigm was just like a delusion, like a wrestling match. Literally like the old wrestling match, where people would they would go see this match, and the players all know what's going on. They're having a good time. They're making money. They're having fun. They like what they do, but it's not real in the sense that there's a real struggle there. But anyway, there's a handful of people, Trump being one of them. By now, he should have vetted himself to people who have eyes to see, ears to hear, that if he had anything they could use against him. I mean, they're making stuff up that's outrageous. They would be using it, right? He's been vetted by his enemies, and he is standing up for these things. Now, there's people I know who are listening to this. I get emails that, Trump's part of this. What was it? The Masons and all this stuff. Okay, save your emails with me on that. But we're at this point now. When a man like Trump starts talking unashamedly and directly, like, and no one else, about right to life and supporting the children and abortion, and going after full throttle, going after trafficking of humans and children and slavery. We got someone who's going at full throttle on that. Don't give me it. He's part of the New World Order stuff, because that's part of it. And don't say it's controlled opposition. Just save that. Save your ink, if you will, in writing to me about that. I'm just putting this stuff out there, and you could do what you want with it. So we're going toward this vortex. It comes down to you have to show the hand, the corrupt hand of the dark side so much. You have Joe Biden, who is obviously mentally impaired, and it happens to people. They get old, and I mean, my aunt had Alzheimer's. My grandmother had dementia, and my grandmother's a very nice person, and she was not mean or nothing, but she had problem. I mean, it happens, right? But he is so corrupt that he is doing this to be the president, and and his corrupt followers are just using him, because none of the people could have got the vote that he did. And Kamala Harris is now going to be the president. They're using him to get in the presidency, because no one would have voted for her. A hamster could have won over her, right? So he gets in there, and then they're going to take him out. He'll either die, or he'll be, unfortunately, his judgment has lapsed, and then I don't know, Hillary's the vice president, whatever. This is the goal. It becomes so obvious that people even inside the camp, who by virtue of hating Trump or supporting him, are frustrated, because it's like it's so ridiculously obvious, yet they have to play that the emperor has no clothes, or it has new clothes. And as it becomes more obvious, and the emperor has no clothes, a lot of people are just peeling off. Meanwhile, on the Trump side, the excitement is growing, because people see this. They see this battle. They see it. Maybe the amount of understanding that they personally have, the resolution of it may be grainy, but they still got the point, right? And so as we go toward this, you have now so obvious what the dark side is doing is they're going into key states that have Democratic leadership and overtly shutting down polls, keeping poll watchers stationed far enough away so they can't see what's going on, extending the polls, having the mail-in ballots with no security, really. All these things, they're obviously doing that to get as many votes as they can, because they have to get rid of Trump. Now, I'll get to why in a minute, all right? So we've got to this point now and say, who's going to win? The polls have lied, are lying. You don't know what it is. You see 30, 40, 50,000 people coming out for a Trump rally. You see 5, 10, 20 coming out for Biden, and then the media says, well, that's not his style. Is that he's more responsible. He doesn't create deadly spreader events and all this stuff for COVID, which is another they take a sickness and they blow it way out of proportion. They actually kill people in the process to make the numbers higher. And now they just test with tests that gives you false positives to make the numbers. I mean, it's so like, it's obvious at this point. I mean, earlier on in the year, you might have been like, well, maybe we got to be careful and all that. Now you see how many times they've changed their minds. 100%, 180-degree turns, the lies that have been come up, things that have been written in the past, coming up, through the YouTube memory machine and all this. So we've got to this point now where they desperately need to get rid of Trump, and they will put anybody in there that could possibly get rid of Trump. And Biden happened to be the best thing they had on paper to get rid of him. So they team up Kamala, which is somebody who would never have been elected, who's got the most radical type stuff. They got her in the wings. And now it's like, who's going to win this election? And you have all of the mainstream media who have been hounding Trump 24/7, everything from blatant, bold lies to mischaracterizations and omissions of things that he's done that has really helped. All the time. MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, all of them, all the time. It's like, in part of the time, Fox. So you have this been going on for years now. You have the big techs. You have Google. You have Facebook. You have Twitter, all censoring all this information. Getting out, again, it's getting so obvious that they're outright censoring these things, and it's on the election. They've now said they're going to censor people who are giving opinions on the election or calling the elections. They're getting that far out. They're desperately, they are naked in the sunlight doing wrong, right? Everybody's been pulled out of their comfort darkness. They pulled out from the whispering in their little inner rooms. They're now out in the sunlight. Everyone can see them for what they are, for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. And as they try harder to get to that ring, that brass ring, that goal, it gets even more crazy. And right now, I mean, for me doing this show, I don't even know what may have happened in the last, half hour. Because I was watching this stuff, more and more things are happening. They're shutting down. Robocalls are going out to various places, telling people to stay home. The polls are too high, too crowded. Come tomorrow. That's funny. Come tomorrow. Places are like, oh, hey, our readers are down. Just leave your ballot. We'll scan it later. These are reports that are coming in that I've been reading. So you have these things that are happening that are unprecedented and would be scrutinized to the hilt on the media, which is not. So it's interesting to watch them. Now, seeing all that, what I thought about, it's like, it seems to me to have all that exposed and then have Trump lose is kind of like, what's the point of exposing it? Now, these are some of I'm getting to these points where I have these, set it up, set the chess game up, and now start to think. What would be the point in a spiritual sense of Trump losing it? Well, I guess it would show that there's a certain amount of people who are choosing the darkness. They're choosing it out of hate of Trump. They're choosing it out of, I don't know, whatever. But I said, well, it's not fair, though, because the media and all these other people have been covering for them. And while granted, probably, you'd have to have either no attention span, no intention to it at all, or a low IQ to miss it. Nonetheless, there are people who are missing it because they're being misled. And, God, I think, wants things to be really known. It's fair. God is, if nothing, he wasn't God is fair. So I'm thinking that even now, it's 4:04 p.m. Central Time in the U.S. I'm thinking that even now you're going to see stuff falling apart. The best laid plans of mice and men are often aired astray. They're falling apart right now, and they're scrambling around going, oh, my God, there's a wave coming. It's really happened. They've already come up with calling it a red mirage, and they're going to say we're not going to call a winner, and we're going to censor Trump if he calls a winner. They're desperately already trying to deal with the victory on the other side. So it tells me that also tells me that they've lost faith in Biden winning by their own metrics. So they're working on contingencies, these vortexes, as I mentioned, these things that are possibly happening. They're starting to work on them on the other side. So they're getting more information, seeing that the Trump turnout is going to be higher than they thought or feared. And now they have to come up with contingencies just in case. So as they do these things, as they start talking about them on the media, you can start to get visions of what's happening now. And when you see the polls of being Biden so far ahead, and yet you see the people going out to vote. I'm in a predominantly Democratic area. I'm not in Chicago, which is hugely Democratic, but I'm still close enough to I'm in the collar counties, as it said, those counties that surround Cook County, which is Chicago. And if you leave out of Chicago, as you leave out of Chicago, it gets less Democratic. Less Democrat, more Republican. Oh, okay. What am I going to do? Vomit here? I apologize for that. So as you get farther out from there, it becomes more Republican. In fact, in many years past, we've had Republican governors because there's enough people outside of Chicago and then some inside to vote for them. So where I'm at, it's still going to have a probably over 50%. At least for Hillary, it was probably like 56, 7% Hillary or 59% as I looked at the county that I'm in. But you're seeing people in hard Democrat areas having breaking out with Trump of all colors, ages, everything. I'd mentioned in a post I made that my mother, who was 86, has voted Democrat her whole life. The last election, she voted for Bernie because he just couldn't vote for Donald Trump. She didn't like him. But she definitely didn't like Hillary. This year, she couldn't wait to get us. My brother took her to vote early because she couldn't wait to vote for Donald Trump because of all the stuff that they have been doing to him. And all I had her do was watch Tucker because I thought he was the most, the least showmanship, the most down to the point about it. And whatever else she's going to do, just watch that show and then anything else you want to do. And the stuff that she saw in there that didn't see on the normal media, she couldn't wait. My cousin and her husband, not big voters, right? Boy, they got interested this time when it came down to COVID and all the stuff that's been going on with Pritzker, our governor. They're out there voting for Trump. His family, his mother, another longtime Democrat, up until, days before she voted, still talking about voting for Biden, and then she couldn't do it. And his family. Now, it's just one family, one wing of one family. I'm not even talking about my cousins on the other side of the family. I don't even know. Just this one wing, 100% turnaround. Went from no voting or Democratic voting to Trump. That's got to be happening over the world. I mean, not every single family, but a lot. I can't be the only person that had this happen to. So you have this tide turning where people are because the dark side got so graphically violent, so graphically vile, and so they articulated their hate so well that if you had any sparks in you that didn't have this hate or rebellion in them, you had to be turned off by it. So, I can't be the only person on the planet who thought of this and seeing this, and it's all over that people are seeing this to do this. And we're seeing the numbers go higher. There's like 2 to 3 to 1 new Republicans in certain areas, and so what is happening now? I've come down to from all of the possible scenarios, and again, you got God on the side doing something, got something planned. There's an incoming, give you an example. Almost got hit by a small asteroid or maybe a large meteor. I don't know. And this is a few years ago. It came directly from around the sun. Like the meteors and the asteroids and all that, they want to come to the sun. Sometimes they're small enough they get perturbed by a planet and they rotate around the planet. But they come to the sun. They come really close to the sun, but because of the speed And the way gravity works, instead of hitting the sun, it ends up going in a gravity well around it and comes back out again. And if it's close enough, you totally miss it. In fact, if it comes out from like another angle, comes out 90 degrees from the sun and goes around it and comes back this way, so it made like a 90-degree turn around the sun, you don't see it. So what has happened? There's been a couple times when, they were getting ready to call, one I remember, they're getting ready to call the president to call emergency because it's going to hit the earth. And it went through the upper atmosphere of the earth and missed. I had no idea it was there. It never been mapped. Don't know what it is. All of a sudden, once it came close enough to Earth, they saw it and was like, oh no, you got to think about this scenario with God. Because God is the universe. God sees everything from everywhere, from beginning of time. And so having faith in God realizes that all things work out for good. Especially for those, all things work for those who good, for those who love God or follow his lead in particular. But all things are going to work out and eventually anyway. So even if Trump were to lose and we go do this stuff, this could cause something else to happen. And again, the people who were in Russia, for example, they fell. China fell. They were in depression. Russia came out of it after 70 years. What makes us better? That's one of the things when people say, I got faith in God and things will be okay. I get a little nervous when I hear that. It's like, well, things aren't going to be okay, but are okay and big picture God okay might be two different things. But I am encouraged by things like Passover, where even though they were going to kill the firstborn of all the families, this thing passed over those who followed the little ritual, to do it. So, I have my own personal praying for Passover on any of the stuff that may be happening. But we don't know. So one of the things I want to do is I want to accept whatever God would like to happen. I'm encouraging it. I mean, for some reason, God, being the king of the universe and all this stuff, could just do anything he wants. But that's what Satan is. Satan is the oppressor. God is a liberator. So God wants you to do the right thing and will help you learn what the right thing is. But it's your choices along the way. And of course, when you get into community and power struggles, you have people who are oppressing other people, so you limit your choices. But even within that framework, there's a spiritual growth. So I'm not saying God is going to come in and do anything, but I do say it seems about ripe for him to do something. Because usually when humans get really arrogant and they start thumbing their nose in God and they start doing very evil things like, killing babies after they're born or up into the place. I mean, people are out coming saying they're getting pregnant and having an abortion as part of the whole erotic play, and you're talking about chimeras now and all this stuff. This all reminds me of back in Sodom and Gomorrah with the seeking strange flesh and all this stuff and kids and all that, and what happens is when man gets too arrogant, when man starts to think, hey, you know what? Computers, I'll download myself into a computer. I'll live forever. I don't need you, God. To me, that's the modern day version of like the Tower of Babel. And at some point, God gets involved. Not that he's threatened by it. It's not, oh my gosh, they're going to surpass me, which is ridiculous to think about that. But it's time to look at the cry of the oppressed by the will of the arrogant. And God hears that cry. And here comes the little thing planned on that chessboard way off to the side, which knocks like a bowling pin, bowling ball knocks over the big shot pins, just to knock down their arrogance. So if you have people who are praying and doing righteousness in that time frame, standing up against evil and the abortion and all this stuff, and you have them and you have the arrogance of the leadership, to me that's the calling card for God to come in. Knock down some bowling pins. Now, how it gets knocked down and how it does it, hey, I'm like, God, whatever, I pray, whatever your will be done. I want, what I want is I want this evil stuff to go away and righteousness to win. And if I die in the process, okay, We can't have this continue onward into this medical tyranny, this technocratic imprisonment. We got to stop. I want this to stop, Lord, and whatever it takes. And this is the theme behind the Daikaiju, which is what Godzilla is. It's Japanese legends or whatever mythology, that when things go bad, the Daikaiju shows up and it destroys Tokyo, but it beats the bad guy in the process, right? So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at, and the people who are going to vote now, people have to realize it's not that Donald Trump is like this archangel Trump, right? But he is a man, a sinful man, like all the rest of us, standing up for what's right and taking it on the chin. And it amazes me how he could take it on the chin and still keep coming. It just amazes me. That's another reason why I think he's the guy for the job, And you have all this slithering evil, laughing, doing abominable things, wanting to, legalize child stuff, sex stuff, and all these things. It's like, if you're going to vote for Biden because you don't like Trump, and that means you got to understand, whoever you vote for, what you're going to do is you're accepting the principles. Now, the deep state's got a lot of problems. The United States is, they've brought down other countries. The revolution that's going on in the United States, the deep state, the color revolution, we've done that to we being the country, have done that to other countries. So we're not above having it, bend back on us. So I'm not sitting here in some high horse. But when you see, if you're going to vote for a Biden, knowing it's going to bring all these other things in because you don't like Trump, your soul has that evil darkness on it. Now, you could vote for Trump and not like him. You can vote for Trump because you don't like the evil and say, well, I got no choice. That's fine, because you're voting against evil and you're taking the best that we have to offer given the circumstance and what he has to work against. It's like, say, when you have the warrior, doesn't necessarily make a great domestic nanny, right? The warrior's built to fight and protect the tribe, the crowd, the country. That's their goal, all right? That's what they're made for. It doesn't mean they're made to become etiquette, champions or whatever. It's what you want the warrior. When you need a war, you want the warrior. When you want to have domestic etiquette in peacetime, well, and then you can have someone who's best suited for that. And Trump is a warrior, and he has this ability to be able to be insulted, berated, and it doesn't affect him because he knows what's the truth is in there. This quality is unheard of in politics. Those things make that choice understandable. It takes someone like a Trump to be able to claw through the absolute evil scum that underlies the system. And to me, it's like a last call. It's like, if enough people want to go the Biden way, want to go the dark way, and Biden's just a conduit for him. It's not even about him. He may be an example of it, but if you want to go that way, and Trump, it's not really about Trump either. It's about the principles he's standing for. You want to choose that way, you just be ready to bear that consequence of those choices. A lot of people have been fooled, but it's gotten so bad that you got to be really dense or you really don't care. And that's a choice too. When you choose not to care, that's a choice. It's got to be really dense to see what's going on and how they've contradicted themselves, turned around. You have how they're shielding Biden, who can't speak right. Trump put together a collage of one of his rallies. That's unbelievable. So this is where we're at. We're standing on a precipice. Now, what I see the time frames happening. Okay, let's just say so. I'm thinking of everyone is looking at, particularly at Pennsylvania. They've already planned vote fraud, extended voting time. They have the court in Pennsylvania, the mayors. They're all working to skew the vote toward so that Trump doesn't get those. They've determined that he needs Pennsylvania to win. And this is where at least from what I could see, most of the thrust is on Pennsylvania. So again, thinking of this complexity theory, systems theory, thinking of the way God works and trips up the arrogant on their own blindness, blind leading the blind into a pit, et cetera. I kind of got up today thinking like Trump doesn't need Pennsylvania. All the focus is on Pennsylvania, and Trump's going to have enough electoral votes that he doesn't need it. All that work that they're doing on it, we won't need it. To me, that's kind of like a God kind of chuckle, kind of like you're focused on your attention and you forgot these other places that add up possibly. So, as I'm looking at the possible fraud and all the court cases that are coming out of it, once, if he doesn't need Pennsylvania, then it doesn't matter if they protest it all. They could all still lose it all, and he wins it anyway. But if he gets 270, a solid 270, more than that, you want to have a room for a rogue elector or whatever. It doesn't matter. He won. They may try to stop it. They're already talking. They're not going to announce the winner today. They're going to prevent Trump from announcing. They're not going to cover him winning and all this ridiculous stuff. Twitter is going to only allow certain people to declare a winner. I'm saying God just laughs at this. I'm laughing at it, and I'm far from God. So it looks to me like there's a lot of forces working here. So if Trump can not need one or two of these states, which is, mathematically possible. I've seen all these maps that come up. It's very possible. And that's not saying, well, maybe he'll win Illinois or California, which would be hysterical. I mean, what a great, funny thing to win California. But anyway, so if he doesn't need those, it can be over tonight. He can declare, now they're going to fight it, they're going to scream and holler and all that. It doesn't matter. But this is the point. If Trump wins big tonight, which is very possible, it's not wishful. This is what I'm looking at. They have to make a decision tonight what to do. And that's where this vortex comes. If Trump wins small, okay, they don't have to do anything yet. They'll play it out in the courts and maybe Trump will lose. If Biden wins, then again, they don't have to do what, they can let it play out and whatever. If Trump wins big, that means they're not going to win in the courts, not going to let it play out. Tonight is when they're going to have to make a choice. And not being brought into the meetings, if there is such a thing, I don't know what's going to happen. But again, playing the possibilities, the chess game and the vectors, that they're going to have to start confusion and rioting tonight. I don't know at what point this may happen. It may be in the morning, 1 in the morning, 10, whatever. I'm thinking they're going to shut down social media, which will be able to convey what's going on at the places that are having these fights, the riots, and I think they're also going to target certain infrastructures. Remember, just think like Syria or Afghanistan and all that. Think about that here. Now it's different, but it's still similar. They're going to have the terror groups are going to go after certain infrastructures. They got to strike fear in the masses because the masses could crush them like a bug. So now there's talk about them taking the White House and taking Trump out of it. I laugh at all that because you got to think that they have so many contingency plans for the things that are outrageous that they have contingency plans. What I understand, they're building an unscalable wall around it. I mean, you have the National Guard there. You have that little known, I think it's a Marine platoon or whatever they call them, that George Washington had, that answers to the president. It's the president is their commander, not just because he's commander in chief. He's the director. He makes a phone call and says, "Get over here." They're here, right? Doesn't have to go through the Joint Chiefs. Doesn't have to go through any of that political stuff. They answer to him. And who knows what other kind of goodies they have buried in the ground and all this stuff. So I'm not really worried about Trump being taken out of there. Now, it depends how, they could try and blow it up, and we'll have to find out what contingencies they may have for that. But that's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's possible. They've already said they're going to, as such. So this is not like me making it up. They're saying they're going to do these things. How effective or how real it is, I don't know. But they're going to have to kind of cut off communication. So look for social medias to go down. Twitter went down for 2 hours. Oh, we don't know why. We'll have to look at it. We're testing their kill switch. And no doubt Facebook has one and whatnot. And then you have the opportunity of cell phones going down. I don't know. AT&T seems to be on board with these guys. I don't know about the other ones. You may have internet disruption. Because the idea is they have to keep you in the dark and afraid while they do this stuff. And this is nothing new. This has been done in other countries. It's just that it's never been done here, and it's unthinkable up to this point. So I don't know. So this is the point I'm talking about is the crucial point in time where the decisions that are made trigger the next one. It's like an atom bomb, and this is where this complex system theory comes in. That's what they use for constructing atom bombs and tying them out, and nuclear weapons, because they can do it and actually have a program look at the mixtures of the fuels and pressures and all that and see if they can start a chain reaction. This model, right? So you have these chain reactions starting. The big one that would be Trump wins big. That is the question, if that then. And then you have all these mini choices that are going to be made very quickly, which when they're made, set into forward motion, a one-way trip. You can't come back from that decision. And that's my point. All these decisions that are being made, when they make them, you can't come back from them. So you have to go forward. They've already done this now. They can't go back from where they're at now, so they keep going forward and exposing themselves more and more and more. Well, in this case, you're going to the die is cast, or whatever the phrase is. They make the decision, the die is cast, the motion starts. Then the next one makes a decision, possibly based on that decision, and the next one makes a decision based on that decision, and you have this cascading effect, which can happen very quickly. It happened within minutes. You could be at the end of 20 things in a minute, especially with the way communications are set up and whatnot. So you have this forward motion. And once that decision has been made, now the counter decisions can also be made. And that's what I'm concerned about. I took today off to vote and to do this stuff, and I thought about, I should have taken tomorrow off, but I might be off anyway. Depends. And also in those critical moments, Trump wins big. The critical moments, they could stand down. They could stop. They go, no, I'm not doing it, or whatever, And the next one doesn't have that prompting from the earlier decision. So now they got to make the decision on their own, and I don't know. And it reminds me of the movie V for Vendetta. At the end of the movie, when the people were marching in London on their Parliament building, I think it is. I don't know what the name of it is. And the police had to make that decision. Are they going to shoot them? They're unarmed. They took the mask off. They're unarmed, unmasked, regular British citizens. The movie was set in England. The police were cut off from communication from their higher-ups, which would have told them to shoot. Now they had to make that decision themselves. They couldn't I was just doing my job, right? They had to make the decision. And because they're looking at fellow humans eye to eye, they back down. This is what I think is waiting here, is these decisions are going to be made along the way. When the rubber hits the road, that's going to be, that little area there is that unknown. That is the beyond the horizon. That's the singularity. What is going to happen at that time? Because the other scenarios, like you could say, well, if Trump loses, they'll just go through and change all the laws and bring us down to socialism. Now, I don't know what might happen in terms of a counter-revolution, but I don't think about that, because you'll have the United States military in immediate being ordered to go shoot American citizens. They won't do it. They won't do it against the rioters, but they'll turn around and charge and just go after it. So I don't need to go down that way because it's all bad down that way. No matter if we slowly go down the boil in the pot or if, they turn up the heat and boil us all, it's not good. But since I have a pretty good indications from just looking how people are reacting all over the place, I think Trump's going to win. He's going to win, or he's going to win big. If he wins, then there's going to have the stuff that's going to happen in the courts, and we don't know. And eventually, if Biden does win, it's similar. It's really similar if he wins now. So Trump wins big. That's what I'm looking at. Trump win big. What's going to happen next? And it will be tonight. They'll decide. They might decide to go slow. Maybe they'll go like, he won big, but maybe we could still get him in the courts, or maybe we could impeach him, or But they've already done that stuff, right? And now Trump put in like 200 federal judges who are going to be more go by the book, and constitutional than the very liberal ones. So the courts aren't necessarily going to be on their side. They may be fair, actually. So this is what I'm looking at. That is that, and that's what's been keeping me up at night. And it's another thing. I'm not saying like, oh God, please, I don't want to have this bad thing happen to me. Well, yeah, of course. As a human being, I don't want this stuff to happen. But I also have to realize, no matter what happens, we're called to follow the teachings of Jesus. We have the power of God and Jesus' Spirit and all that, all helping us to get through this. Whether, if you recall, the people were burned at the stake because they were singing hymns as they were going up in flames, or you have the fiery men in the furnace with the Son of Man, at the time unknown, appearing to them, and they were all fine. Or you have the in the case of Nebuchadnezzar, listening to Daniel and doing what he says, whatever the scenario is. To God be the glory. And I use the phrase, I think it was Job who said, though he may slay me, I will praise his name. I might be paraphrasing it, but that's the point. There's a big picture here. God knows what's best. But one thing that's really cool about God, that's why I really appreciate Jesus being the God on earth, whether God's Spirit came through the man Jesus. I don't get into all that technical stuff. All I know is that God looked through human eyes and had mercy. And that is what I'm calling on now. I don't deserve the mercy. I request the mercy. And I will do whatever I can for the glory of God, following his principles, acknowledging the power of Jesus and the principles of Jesus, and standing for Jesus and the freedoms that this country was made. That's what I'll do. And I just, I pray that Trump wins big tonight, and those people decide to not, flip the switch. And if they start flipping the switch, it could be unflipped very quickly, early, met by it. It's a little longer than I thought to walk through this, but people who listen to me now for years know I go off on tangents here and there, but it fills in. I mean, it does fill in the initial point. So I also want to mention that tonight, starting at 8 p.m. Central, I will be on a panel on aftermath.fm. The link is going to be in the bottom of the description here, directly to the listen page. I'm going to be on there along with others to give commentary along the way of the election. Aftermath.fm. It's a new station, video/audio station that has public, free stuff and premium service and whatnot. So that I will be there starting at 8. Well, at some point after 8 p.m. Central, we're going to be popping on and off. I'm not going to be there for 5 hours talking, but for those who are interested to check that out, aftermath.fm, or best yet, look at the bottom in the description and click on the link. It goes right to the listen page. I'm sure he'll have something on the main page, but that's what that's about. All right, I'm gonna call it a day here, doing a Tuesday afternoon, late afternoon show for a change. But I've missed a couple shows in a week, and I wanted to say this stuff prior to the election and pray that God will be done. You know, like Jesus prayed in Gethsemane, fantastic prayer. I don't want this cup, but by your will, not by mine. And I also trust that if the cup is coming, that we'll have God will support, what have you, be there to go through it. All right. I think that's it. We're going to hit the button here, and we're going to go out, and God bless, and we'll see what will be, huh? Oh, wow. This is Nick and Mila time. Feet to the fire, James out the answer as we end year 18. God bless you all. God bless everyone.
Oh, my old friend, the one who walked before, the one who walked again, the ancient one of old, with wisdom for the new. Revive our inner sight, retell your timeless truths. Oh, ancient one.
Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the OnSync Radio network of stations.